Former Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs Dudnath Singh has made legal contributions to Guyana for the past 50 years. He is a man who had commanding courtroom presence with his powerful cross-examination techniques. Born on June 16, 1933, Singh pursued a career in the legal field, and he was admitted to the practice in January 1959. Appointed senior counsel in 1985, he continued in private practice until June 2001, when he was appointed Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs. Former Attorney General Dudnath Singh is a name which will be etched in Guyana's history for years to come.
Welcome to Let's Talk with Lakshmee, a show about us, our people, our community, our culture, our experiences. And as that brief bio introduced, a man of great prestige, cream of the crop, Mr. Dudnath Singh, former Attorney General of Guyana. Mr. Singh, welcome to Let's Talk with Lakshmee.
It's a privilege to be here and to be able to relate some of my experiences during the 50 years I practiced law.
50 years is definitely a long time. I'm sure you have tons of stories and tons of things to enlighten us. Your name will definitely be etched in history books, I'm sure, of Guyana. So, Mr. Singh, enlighten us a little bit about your public service and private services to Guyana.
I originally was a member of the Attorney General Chambers. That was in the 60s, where I served for about 9 years with Sir Sridhar Ramphal, Anthony Austin, and several other colleagues. And then I returned to private practice. I then joined the Attorney General's Chambers as the Attorney General in 2001, June 2001. And I resigned that position in January 2009. I was commemorating 50 years at the bar, and having taken into account what I had done throughout the Caribbean, and especially in Guyana, I think the time had come for me to become a farmer.
To retire, okay. I'm sure that day, I've read several articles, it was definitely a sad day in Guyana. Now, tell our audiences a little bit about your background, as far as your educational background.
I was born on the 16th of June, 1933, in Berbice.
Where in Berbice?
Quarantine Berbice, number 78 Village, Quarantine Berbice. And I attended the Skeldon Scott School, and one of my schoolmates at that time was Yvonne Haywood Ben, who later became the Minister of Government in the PNC government. From Skeldon High School, I came to Georgetown at the Central High for a while. And after that, I left for England in 1955, where two of my friends, Salim Rahman and Atta Sankar, encouraged me to go to England. I came from a very poor background.
I was about to say, back then at that time, not many
very
people
poor
were
background.
going to UG or going to anywhere.
So my friends had to help me. They encouraged me and assured me that when I went to England, I would be able to stay with them, and financially and otherwise they would support. I remember the trip I took, the Francasi, from Trinidad, and went to Italy and then to Victoria Station. And I was the happiest man when I saw my two friends waiting for me.
You knew you were safe.
Waiting for me in London, at Victoria Station. And then we went home, and I was enrolled in the Middle Temple, where they were enrolled as well. And I continued my education at the Middle Temple, and I left England. I qualified in England in 58, December, and I left and came to Guyana and was called to the bar in January of 1959. And since then, I got involved in private practice, and I was encouraged to join the Attorney General Chambers, which I did, and I served for 9 years with Shahabuddin and Kenneth George and Ramphal. And then I returned to private practice in 1961. And one of the first cases I did after I returned to private practice was in Antigua, I went with Lloyd Lockwood, who took me as his junior. We were doing some work with Air Board. I continued to practice in the Caribbean, and I prosecuted for the government of Dominica, the former Prime Minister, Patrick John, for conspiracy, and several other cases. Also practiced in Antigua, where I represented Tim Hector, who was the Marxist-Leninist leader of that time. And then the incident occurred in Grenada, where there was the intervention after the killing of Morris Bishop. I was then recommended to be one of the prosecutors, and by Prime Minister Eugenia Charles.
That must have been a great honor for you at the
Very
time.
great honor, because I was home in Bel Air, and the interim Prime Minister, Nicholas Brafitt, called me and said, Mr. Singh, get yourself on the next plane. You're going to be one of the prosecutors in this case. Well, 17 or 18 persons was charged for the killing of Bishop and others. And I was one of the first lawyers that went there. There was a Grenadian friend of mine who was with me. And then Carl Hudson Phillips came out in the trial, as well as the Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions, Wilma Hilton of Jamaica. We were all part of the prosecution team, and the defense were afforded legal representation by the state. And 17 or 18 Jamaican lawyers were assigned to them.
And
so
you were the only Guyanese lawyer.
I was the only Guyanese. But Lloyd had gone, Lloyd and Lloyd and I think some other one in Lacus had gone. But they left after a while. It was, during that trial I had to come to the United States, because remember the intervention, the US Army had taken away a lot of the exhibits when they went and seized. So I had to come to the State Department together with a colleague and try to assort the evidence. We assorted that evidence and we went and prosecuted. Eventually, Bernard Cord and the others were convicted, and they appealed, they lost the appeal, and subsequently they went to the Privy Council, and the Privy Council said that the judge ought not to have imposed the penalty of death on them, except there was a proviso. And so that sentence was set aside, and they were served 20 or 15 years. In addition, in Dominica, some of the people who were engaged in treason there were executed. I was also involved in what is known as the Dole Chedi trial.
Explain that to us.
In Trinidad. Chedi was supposed to be one of the biggest drug lords in Trinidad. And I was involved in that preliminary inquiry, and subsequently Chedi was executed after he had gone to the Privy Council. I also appeared for Anissa Abu Bakr. Anissa Abu Bakr was the wife of Abu Bakr, who had committed the offense in Trinidad. But Anissa had been married to a Guyanese, and they had a son, and the son was killed. And it was because Henry Green was the father that I was retained, because the father knew me. I had defended the father in Guyana.
Now, all of these cases, were at any time you worried about your own safety, your own life?
These were all political cases, but
But
all
you're
right, let me
representing,
tell you
right.
something. Despite the fact that Burnham was a wicked and a hostile person, I think because I was a lawyer, Burnham had a kind of relationship with people that he formed. He liked that he liked in his own way. He would abuse you up and cuss you up and threaten you and all sorts of things. But he told, I remember Ramphal telling me that Burnham had told him, they must never attack me.
So you were protected?
I was protected from the PNC hooliganism by Burnham himself. He was that sort of a person. And in fact, on many occasions, on Saturdays, we would go to the Woodbine Hotel and have a drink. So he was a brilliant man, as you know, right? I would say that he was the most brilliant politician in the Caribbean.
Mr. Singh, what case sticks out the most in your mind when you think about your 50 years in law?
Well, the Morris Bishop case was certainly one, because that case went on for about 5 years. And of course, then you have the Dole Chedi case in Trinidad and Arnold Rampersad in Guyana. But there are several other cases in Guyana. Oh, I should remember.
Okay.
I represented Pandit Ripu Daman Prasad
Okay,
when
what
he
that
was
case
being expelled from the Mahasabha. He was the treasurer of the Mahasabha, and that was the first case I did when I returned to private practice.
What would you say the crime rate in Guyana is today compared to, let's say, 20 years ago?
The world is a different
It's a
place.
very different place.
Very, very. 20 years ago, nobody locked their houses. Everybody, child misbehaved on the street, any stranger could intervene. Those days have long passed. Times change. You see a child on the street misbehaving, you attempt to discipline, you'll be abused in the foulest of language. In the United States, you have too much of freedom. Freedom for everything. Everything that is good or bad. But we are in Guyana, we are a little country. A small, I went to a wedding and Mizir's wedding.
Okay.
And I was speaking there, and I knew that Mizir, the young lady, had worked at the White House. I knew they were Republicans.
Deborah Mazier, yes.
And the husband was. And several of the relatives who had come from abroad were from the States and Canada, all lawyers.
Yes.
I think they had 17 lawyers or something. And they had all achieved very distinctive positions in their field. So I said, it was remarkable that the little Kismia's country could produce so many
So many
gifted
accomplishments.
and,
So many great lawyers.
and Joe had to go and explain to her what I meant when I said this little Kismia's country. But it is a fact. I am told that Guyana has the highest amount of graduates at the PhD level.
Do you ever, go down to the school and maybe talk to the children about possibly going into law?
Well, a remarkable thing is that the people at the university have not connected to the profession, which is regrettable. Many of the professors who teach at the university level have never practiced. They don't communicate. Practitioners, as happens in the UK, practitioners are invited to give guest lectures because of their experience and their factors. Not everything would you be taught in a law school, and so they share their experience. Regrettably, that doesn't happen.
That doesn't happen.
In the Caribbean. Everybody is an expert. Everybody is an expert, so you can't delve into their expertise. And as I had said, this internet has a good purpose, but it also can be abused. For instance, in Parliament, when people were speaking in Parliament, everybody go on the internet, they research something, they got a long paper, they stand up and
They don't know
they
what to
read
say.
everything in their thing. They don't know how to summarize, they don't know how to extract. They just go. And I told the speaker that if I was the speaker, I would expel half of them.
Plagiarism, yeah.
Because first of all, In Parliament, you're not supposed to read from any documents. You're supposed to ad lib, speak. That's what parliamentary debates are. You have your side notes and things like that. But they sit down and they read out the whole thing that they take. Cross-examination is an art. People believe that you just read all your stuff, you know all the material, and you get up and you cross-examine. That is not cross-examination. Cross-examination is you must stand, know the material in your head.
Yes.
Don't read it, get books and you're looking here and book and all sorts of things. And you never make a note when you're cross-examining. Your junior officer must be doing something. But you must have it all in your head. And that is the greatest asset of a trial lawyer. Cross-examination. And I recall one of the Court of Appeal judges in Guyana, Justice Singh, always says to young lawyers, you should come to court and hear Mr. Singh cross-examine. I was also told that in England. So the whole area of the law has many aspects, and in the United States, for instance, you specialize in different areas.
Right.
In Guyana, you don't have that luxury.
You do everything.
You do everything because you don't have a big forum that does this, a big forum that does. So you have to do everything. You may be better at something than others. And some lawyers may decide to do civil work rather than criminal work. But criminal work is what they call showboy work. You go to court and you're in show. Right? A civil lawyer doesn't get to show.
You have to convince
the criminal lawyer has the facility of being reported every day in the newspaper and the television, and he's interviewed on every occasion.
So tell me, do you think a lot of people get away with crimes in Guyana?
The prosecution is not as strong as it should be. And the reason is, in the magistrates' court, instead of having trained lawyers as prosecutors, you have police officers.
I was about to bring that up.
And in the High Court, it's usually very junior lawyers. So these junior lawyers have to be competing with the seniors. You know the system we have whereby you're appointed a senior counsel.
Right.
That's in place of the old British system of taking silk, which was a queen's prerogative. So we still have those throughout the Caribbean. It's the same thing in India. You have SCs. You have throughout the Caribbean. I'm not sure if Australia and New Zealand has it, or Canada. But we still maintain those systems. And I am hoping, however, that with the improvement of the justice system, that they will put in place remedies to ensure that you have more prosecutors, that you have more judges and lawyers to do, and that they stop this business of police versus prosecuting.
Now, also you mentioned the police question, and I'm not sure if you can answer this or not. Is it true in Guyana, if you get pulled over driving and the officer wants to give you a ticket, that you can actually pay him off and not get a ticket?
I am told that on many occasions that happens. And the police officers see nothing wrong in doing it. They would say, you give them a $3,000, you give them a lunch money or something. It should not happen.
Right.
It should not happen. But because they're so poorly paid, right? Very
That's
poorly
why it's
paid,
happening.
very, very poorly paid, that they feel it should supplement their income. Sometimes they might, I think I even tell your father, leave a lunch money or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I hear, of course they wouldn't do it to me or somebody else, but it happens. And what is distressing is when it happens to a foreigner.
Yes.
You know, because the foreigner, you know, that thing is something so unusual for him.
Very unusual, yeah.
Very unusual that, and when he comes, he wouldn't forget it. Even if
And
it's
who
a
do you
little,
report it to? That's all to report it to.
even if it's a little $1,000 Guyana he gives, which is what, $100 or what, he still, it still should not happen, but it is happening, regrettably. Okay, let me speak on the positive side
Okay.
of life in our country a little bit.
Yes.
The president has put Guyana on the world stage with climate change.
Climate change.
The discovery of uranium in the Northwest District and the possibility of oil exploration starting very shortly. Assuming those two projects are able to have some form of success, Guyana will be poised for takeoff. I think we have already been poised for takeoff in the climate change area because of the huge forest we have. I remember a logger.
Guyana's rainforest.
Yeah, I remember a logger was telling me, I said, man, you fellas going to cutting down all this bloody green heart every day. What you going to do when the green heart run out? He said, Mr. Singh, they got green heart in the bush. You can't put your hand around it. Nobody don't touch those green hearts. Right? And I read recently that the Minister of Tourism said that there will be a group from the BBC will be retracing the steps of Raleigh's El Dorado. So he will start from Trinidad and throughout Guyana to find the city of gold.
I actually recently read an article that they said Guyana is the oxygen of the world.
Is the
Oxygen of the world.
oxygen? Well, that is so because of the forest.
Right. Now, we know you're retired now, 50 years of law. Tell our viewers, what are you doing at home? I visited your home one time. You have a beautiful home, garden.
But you know I'm a gardener.
I saw your garden. Acres and acres of land, of trees and fruits.
I go every day, and your father is just opposite to me, right? So I tell him, I said, boy, you build a mahal here. Why the hell you want to go in New York and don't live in this mahal? Eh? But your mother, I think, is very keen on Guyana. But I hope they overcome that.
Now you're retired, you guys can spend a lot more time together.
Yes,
Go to the
I'm telling
garden,
this
travel.
man, I said, man, look at the big acres, 7 acres you got here, you can't even walk over the rock.
There's so many excursions. You mentioned the Minister of Tourism. I interviewed him while I was in Guyana, and so many excursions in Guyana that I'm sure Mom, you have not even visited yet. You guys need to travel.
Well, when I
You're
was
all
police
retired.
legal advisor, I was privileged to go all over the interior. That is an official duty, right? But there is so much to do. I'm sure your parents have never went to the quarantine. Quarantine River.
Oh, quarantine.
It's Quarantine River up to where they had the dispute with Suriname. Is about 150 miles up the Quarantine River, you know.
Mom, have you gone there? No.
There
You go. You got to go there. We have some people in the live audience. So.
And that is, I know more about the quarantine because I'm from quarantine.
Right.
But the same would apply in Essequibo, and I have another friend, Barama or something. I know doctors from New York who fly up to Guyana just to go hunting and fishing for the weekend and come back.
Wow.
And Trinidad, they do that a lot.
I know Mr. Prashad mentioned that there's going to be an excursion. You have breakfast in Guyana in the morning, lunch, I think he said, in Brazil, dinner in Venezuela, and back to Guyana the next day within 24 hours. You guys have to go on that excursion. Okay, Mr. Singh, tell us a little bit about your family.
Well,
I know you have a lovely wife. I know you recently have a grandchild, right?
Yes. But I was married twice. I have 5 children who all went to boarding school. 3 of them are doctors.
So they're strict and disciplined like Swami School, right?
Yeah, boarding schools are like that. They're doctors, and one is a financier, and one is a yoga teacher, Swami.
So what are your future plans now? Now you're retired. Are you going to go back and maybe give lectures? Maybe you can go back to UG and give a lecture.
But as I said, there's no relationship. That is what ought to happen. But the professors at the university have a different view. But some of my friends are suggesting that I go on some kind of speaking tours, some in Guyana to young people.
You're definitely a legend
Yeah.
in Guyana. Your name will go on for many, many years. So it may be something to consider. After, of course, you relax,
Yeah.
take a few vacations, go here and there, then go back and give back to the community. Well, Mr. Singh, it was a pleasure having you here on Let's Talk with Lakshmi. I'm sure there are a lot of our viewers at home just tuned in, cannot get off of the station right now because they're so happy to see you. Probably remember you back from home, all of the great work that you've done in Guyana, and the name and the legend that you'll definitely be.
Well, you know, the most important part is when I walk down Liberty Avenue,
Everybody knows you.
when somebody comes up and says, Mr. Singh, you don't remember me? I said, no. I said, you defended me in a murder case. You defended me in a murder case, or you did a case for my father or something.
And you won.
Yes.
Right? Of course.
That's why he's here. It's important.
Wonderful.
Anyway, thank
Well,
you very much.
Thank you very much for coming
Yes,
down,
okay.
and I hope to visit you soon in Guyana. Viewers, I do hope that you enjoyed this week's episode of Let's Talk with Lakshmi, where we were privileged to interview the former Attorney General of Guyana, Mr. Doodnauth Singh. He's an outstanding lawyer and a prominent figure in our community. I'll see you next week, same time, same place. It's a date. Let's talk.